Welcome to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers, newbies, and veterans, and everyone in between. We're hosted by M.A. Lee with the assistance of Remy Black and Edie Rooms, all from Writers Inc. Books. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Each episode lasts as long as it takes to fix a quick dinner, drive a short commute, or take a brisk walk. Resources and links are in the show notes. Visit us at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Now, on to this week's episode. Charlotte Morganti? Is that how you say your name?
Correct.
Okay. What kind of name is that? I was very curious about it.
It's Italian.
Italian.
My husband's from an Italian. Well, he's was born in North America, but his family came from around Lucca in northern Italy. So,
yeah. Oh, my nephew went to northern Italy. He loved northern Italy. He said that was the best experience that he had. He was on an archaeological dig over there.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. I was impressed.
Yeah. Because those would be great digs, right? Because the ruins are just... I can't believe like Rome, like your people are living right next to the Colosseum, and it's
part of their life.
Yeah.
Over here in America, we don't have that centuries of rootedness when we look around us, and I think that's why nature is so important to us.
Yeah,
we've not grown up with buildings all around us.
Yeah,
we've grown up with trees and mountains.
Right. What part of you're from? Somewhere in the States, I imagine, right?
I am. I was born in North Georgia.
Okay.
Very rural area, and now live in East Tennessee, very close. Well, it's an hour to Gatlinburg, which you've probably heard of.
Right.
30 minutes to Cades Cove, which is the spot if you want to see any wildlife whatsoever.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yes. We've been having elk come in now.
Wow.
Yes. Great. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of elk around here. Well, I live in British Columbia on the west coast of Canada, and but driving, back and forth to Alberta, there's always tons of elk, and they're quite frightening when you run into them, in the dusk when they come up beside the highway. But other than that,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I remember going out west and seeing a moose. I couldn't believe how large it was. Yeah. We were in a little Jeep, and it was like, oh, it's so much bigger than we are.
Yeah.
Tell me about your writing and how you got into writing, and then let's go into what technology you use.
Sure. I write mysteries because, it's what I love to read. And so I write, I've got a few short stories that are on the cozy end of the spectrum.
Right.
And then I have two series that I've just started. The first one has a male part-time private investigator, and he's part-time bartender, part-time PI. And those stories are set in Canada, in the mountains in central British Columbia.
Right.
In a small town with, tons of quirky characters. And then the second series is set in near Truckee. Do you know Truckee, Northern California, near the Donner Pass and Donner Lake?
Right.
And in the Sierra Nevadas. And it's a series with a female investigative reporter who, manages to get herself into a series of, dire events. But
and what was your background that led you into that?
I was in my working life, I was a lawyer, and I practiced corporate finance and mining law. Kind of not the good stuff you'd want to practice if you wanted to be a mystery writer, right? Like I didn't do criminal law, and I never went to court other than to apply for an order or something, but always non-contentious. So I missed all of that, right? Like that courtroom drama that had I had my wits about me, I would have, specialized in that area. So then I could, put it into books, but it didn't work that way. So, and then when
But
I,
you
yeah,
honed a lot of investigative skills still
yeah,
because of what you had to dig out and pick out about the
yeah,
law and the
yeah,
information that was going to
yeah,
affect the case that you were working on.
yeah, yeah. And going through law school, you learn a lot of law that you may never practice, but you can
Mm-hmm.
always use in writing mysteries, and I know how to research it, so I can always
Mm-hmm.
find interesting things.
Right.
But yeah, so the interesting thing is, like, when you're a lawyer, it's all about honesty and the truth and so on, and so you never, well, I don't know what the criminal lawyers do, but as a, paper pushing lawyer, you don't mislead the other
Right.
side, right? So,
Right.
so I was all about, when I started writing, it was like my characters weren't allowed to lie because and so I would drive myself crazy trying to say, well, how could he say this that is sort of not true but still could be true? And then after a couple of years it dawned on me, I said, Charlotte, everybody lies, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
read fiction, all the fiction I read, everybody's lying all over the place.
They lie to the
Yes.
police. They
Yeah,
lie to
yeah,
their husbands
yeah,
and
yeah,
wives. They lie to their
right.
children.
Everybody's got
They lie to their
secrets
boss.
and they outright lie. And so it was like so freeing to say, whoa, like I can let my characters lie. Oh dear. Anyway, so after I retired, I took a few courses and did an MFA,
Hmm.
and started fooling around and writing some
Right.
things. And finally, I wrote a couple novels, and then I thought, oh, this will be easy. I'll just get an agent and get a publisher, and I'll
Hmm.
become a famous author, and everything's great. And and then the
The
reality,
dream.
yes, right. And then the reality sort of smacks you in the face, and you realize that it's takes a long time to find an agent,
Hmm.
and then a longer time to find a publisher. And so finally, I had some friends who they are indie published,
Hmm.
and they said, like, why not just publish it yourself?
Right.
So a couple of years ago, I went to a conference in Las Vegas for independent authors
Hmm.
and learned just a ton of stuff about
Right.
publishing and marketing and promoting and so on. And then I decided, okay, I'll self-publish. So I set up an imprint for myself and published a couple books, and it's a lot of fun.
Is that one of your books behind you? Local Heiress Dead?
Yes, yeah, yeah, that is. That's the series that's set near Donner Lake,
Mm.
and yeah, that book won. There's an organization here where I live called the Sunshine Coast Writers and Editors, and
Hmm.
they run, a competition every year. And that book won an award for best novel by
Right.
a local writer. So I'm pretty pleased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I'm on message boards, going back to your idea of, thinking that you needed an agent and
Hmm.
going the traditional publishing route, when I'm on message boards or Facebook or something like that, there's all these new writers are talking about, oh, another agent turned me down.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm never going to get published. And I think, and I'm writing in the comments, go Indy, go Indy, go because that's what I did. But I did pursue that for several decades. And I finally
Hmm.
said, forget this.
Yeah.
I'm just going somewhere around the late 90s. I
Yeah.
just said, I'm going to write for myself. I'm going to write the
Yeah.
stories that I want to read.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm going to write a complete manuscript because I have completism and I
Yeah.
must finish what I start.
Yeah.
And then I got a Kindle around 2011. And it took me 2 years to figure out, wait, there's self-published people on here.
Yeah.
If they did it, I can do it
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like it was years ago when it was,
Yeah.
vanity presses,
Right.
and there was people sort of poo-pooed it,
Yes.
and really, I think there's an awful lot of talent in the indie author world because, agents, you can see from the agent's point of view, if they make 15% of whatever, or, whatever their rate is. But, there's limited publishing companies out there, and so I can see why they have to be so restrictive and selective in the authors they pick up, because it's difficult, I think, to make a living, unless you've got some superlative writers in your list of clients.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad my friends finally pushed me off the fence. And it's and really, indie authors don't do much more marketing and promotion than traditional authors do. I mean, everybody has to do their own, right?
Yes.
I think the days of the book tours, fully funded book tours, maybe that's still there. Yeah, that's still there probably for, writers like J.K. Rowling and Louise Penny and stuff, but for mid-list authors, probably not.
Right. And how many authors have you heard who are trad published, but they're not making a living? What they're doing is they're teaching at a local college somewhere.
Yes.
And that makes their living, and they're writing as much as they can on the side.
Right.
And it's basically, unless you are able to get onto a bestseller list, you're not going to make a ton of money.
Right.
And people have that as, it's in the back of their head that they're going to make all this huge amount of wealth. And no, that's not how it went. That's not how it went for the people in the past either, unless they were big, huge names. Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain.
Yeah.
He had very popular books with Tom Sawyer.
Yeah.
And then later with Huck Finn. But he was spending most of his life trying to make money.
Yeah.
And that's all he was doing as a journalist. And I don't think people today who are getting into writing realize you don't depend on the first book to make you a bestseller.
Yeah.
You've got to have something else backing you up and heading you up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm amazed whenever I go to a conference, and I rarely do this, but I'm always amazed at the number of people that I meet who are retired and they are now pursuing their dream. It has always been their dream to write.
Yeah.
But they weren't going to be able to become a bestseller immediately. And so they went into a job and worked to that job while they had all these ideas spinning around in their heads throughout their lives. And now that they're retired, they're going at it full force.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
Now, let's go into technology.
Sure.
Let's start with the basic question. Are you a pantser? Are you a plotter? Are you a puzzler? And how do you keep the whole story in your head as you go? What do you use to help you with that?
I am a plotter. I tried to be a pantser, and it was just such a disaster that, I had to rip the whole book apart and rearrange it. And I swore never again. So but when I start with a story, I, fiddle around in a notebook and write, well, what about this and that? And then I start, you can imagine, right, with the arrows and the mind, like going around the pages, right? And then this happens and this happens. And so eventually I sort of sit down and bash out the story for myself, just like, like no showing, all telling. And then I discovered Plotter. That I don't know if you use Plotter, right?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's somewhat like Scrivener. People who love Scrivener, they can move scenes around and stuff. And so Plotter is like that. You can do a timeline, and you can just, if your scene's in the wrong place, you just drag the scene over, and it behind the sort of timeline, it has an outline section and characters, and you can do a story Bible on it. So everything is all in one place, which comes in handy.
Mhm.
But you can also, so for each item on your timeline, then you can go and outline your chapter. And, I don't really, I know people who have huge outlines, right? Like pages and pages. And what I do is I try to hit the highlights in each chapter, like,
Right.
okay, it's going to start here. This has to happen, and then by the end of the chapter, this is where they are, right? So, and then the pantsing part of me, I guess, comes out in trying to
Right.
get the character from the start of the chapter to the end and,
Right.
fiddling around. But so I use Plotter to keep me grounded, because if I just let the characters run amok, it's
They are running amok.
yeah, yeah. It can be entertaining, but it's not going to finish the book for me. So that's what I use to keep me on track.
Yeah. So have you ever let that happen and you're aiming for 75,000 words and all of a sudden you've got 99,000 words and you're
Yeah.
thinking, oh my goodness.
Yeah. 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 I my first novel I had to cut, I think I had 120,000 words. And I, had to work at it to get it down to around 90. And,
Right.
That's even still, it's a bit long. So now I'm trying to teach myself that, 75, 80,000 is about the sweet spot.
Right.
And, yeah, yeah. And then I use Pro Writing Aid once
Right.
I've, got the manuscript more or less done, just for the for to help me with the editing, because
Right.
it's really good at picking up like misuse of commas. I used to know where commas were supposed to go. In my professional life, I had no problem with commas. And then I don't know, writing fiction, it's a whole different world. And, invariably it tells me, yeah, you need a comma here when I think I don't, so I use it for that. And it's really good in that you can tell the software, okay, I want this should be a casual style of writing rather than professional. And
Right.
somehow the algorithm, I guess, knows, and it can flag things for you that perhaps could be said better, or,
Right.
so that
I would need it
is,
for the awkward phrasing
yeah, yeah.
because
And the
I
word,
I twist things around and I shouldn't sometimes.
yeah, yeah. And oh, yeah, it'll tell you, oh, you have a dangling participle here. It's like, what? Shades of going back to, high school English. But
Yeah.
yeah, so it's been a lifesaver, I think. And then um the thing I just discovered, I was at the conference I was at in November. I don't know if you go to it. It's called Author Nation. It's
Mm.
indie authors. So
It used to be
it
20
used
books
to be
to
20
50K.
books, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there were a couple of, you may have heard of her, Alessandra Torri,
Yes.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and a fellow called JD Laska. They have come up with, they've got this AI program and they've named it Marlowe, and you can upload your manuscript and it analyzes your manuscript just so fast, and it tells you, it compares your manuscript to popular novels in the same genre.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed me where the pacing was fast and where the pacing slowed down, and
Right.
compared it to the popular novels, so that you could see if you were sort of on the same track.
Right.
It definitely picked up overuse of certain phrases, and and it picked up every Canadian spelling word, spelling that I had put in there, are used in favor and stuff. It picked them all up as, error, error, because
And
I
you said,
forgot to tell it.
shut up. This
Yeah,
is a
I
word.
forgot to tell it I was writing Canadian English. And it came up with comps, like
Oh,
in
that's
terms
good.
of, yeah, in terms of Yeah, comps as in, this book is like that book, but also in terms of my the voice
Right.
and the tone or the atmosphere of the
Mhm.
novel. It was just amazing. And so I think something like that is going to be really, really useful in terms of like developmental
Right.
editing
Hmm.
because
And marketing, knowing
yeah,
your comps.
yeah. And the report that you get back is, sort of like it did suggest things like you might want to consider,
Hmm.
speeding things up here or slowing it down and letting the reader, I was just amazed. It
Did it say that tactfully? Was it that tactful?
Yeah, it
People
wasn't
like
that
wish.
tactful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think because both of the people who set it up are writers, and so yeah, nothing was like, oh, this is the worst thing I've ever read. No, it. So I think I'll definitely be using
Mhm.
Marlowe in the future, and then um, you can change the manuscript, re-edit it, and then upload it again and see what the results are. So
See, see if you improved actually,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
especially where your pacing was.
That's
Yes,
right. That's
yes,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
So that was I think that was the biggest takeaway from the
Hmm.
conference for me.
Right.
Yeah. And then I use Vellum as well to
Ah,
format, because I work on a Mac
yeah.
and I don't understand InDesign or, any of those very sophisticated programs. So Vellum just it's a fantastic program to,
Mhm.
format the books for me.
Well,
And then
I've heard people talk about it and just absolutely love it, and
yeah,
I have seen manuscripts that come out of it, and I'm going like, wow, my
yeah.
poor little Microsoft Word formatted document will never look like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there is a now. I don't know if the fellow from Kindlepreneur, Dave
Yes.
Chesson.
Hmm.
Yes. So his team have come up with a program called Atticus, which
Yes.
is
Hmm.
Vellum for the Microsoft world.
Right.
And I haven't talked to many people who've used it, but it looks to be
Hmm.
somewhat the same idea.
Right.
So I love the idea that you can just push a button and something does all the hard work for you. Yeah.
I love that idea too. Unfortunately, I don't think it ever happens for me. Only with my washing machine.
Yeah. And a microwave.
Yes. Two vital parts of your life.
Yeah, right, right. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
What
Yeah.
else do you use when you're using technology? Did you use the Sisters in Crime Pacemaker app to figure
No,
out a word count or anything like that? Or how do
no.
you track your progress?
Oh,
Or do you do that? Are you
I
a
don't, I
checkbox
don't,
person?
I sort of, where am I on the outline? And I type, I use Word, right, to do
Hmm.
the manuscript. And so it tells me, the word count all the way
Right.
through. And, and then I sort of, I don't really worry about it first draft.
Hmm.
It always looks like I start out like very sparse and
Right.
then, I have to go in and add some things. And then of course I add too much but so I don't really track the word
Right.
count until the end of the first draft. And the rest of the technology I use is more on the marketing and promotion
Right.
side.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if you use Canva for um,
I keep trying Canva and I keep going like, wait, I can do this better in PowerPoint, or I can do this better
yeah,
with something else.
yeah. Well, it depends what what you're used to, I guess. But I
Hmm.
use it for social media posts to,
Right.
pull in an image and put in
Hmm.
some text and make things look, like, a little more professional
Right.
than what I would normally do. And so I use it a lot for social media. I know you can use it for PowerPoint as well,
Right. Hmm.
and which is handy if you want, you know, for me, actually, it was easier because it was sort of drag and drop.
Right.
And
Hmm.
with PowerPoint, I think because my remembrance of PowerPoint comes from my professional days when we
Yes.
were always doing, legal slides, which were
Yes.
just, deadly dull. So,
Oh,
if you
yes.
can, yeah, it's like point by point by point. So, to be able to play around with images
Mhm.
and text is on Canva is, a bit more fun for me. And then
Yeah.
I use 11 Labs and a website called Lumen 5 to create book trailers
Right.
and videos. And I'm nowhere near very skilled at it, but it's a lot of fun
Mhm.
to do that. And then what else do I do? I've got a list here. Well, MailerLite for my newsletter.
Right. Yes.
And then again, I discovered because of Black Friday, I found an app called Merlin, which is like an aggregator of AI tools.
Right.
So, like instead of having to go, over here for Chat GPT to find some research
Mhm.
information or something, or over to another one to try to get an image or a drawing, it aggregates everything in one. It's sort of one-stop shopping, so you can
Right.
put it in
Mhm.
your prompt and it will either go find an image maker for you, or a research tool or something.
That speeds
And
up your time.
yeah, yeah. And so I've just started playing with it, so I think it might come in handy for things like researching or brainstorming social media content or something
Mhm.
like that. I don't use AI for the writing process itself because
Mhm.
that's the fun part. So,
Right.
you know, right? And I don't know, it doesn't feel right to use AI to generate a book. It seems like, well, why bother? So,
Right.
but I'm hopeful that it can help authors in things like productivity or making
Yes.
your life a little bit easier to
Mhm.
find the resources you need. That's the
Or
hope.
do your
Yeah.
grammar checking.
Yeah, exactly.
The things we don't like to do, that's what
That's
AI
right.
should
That's
do.
right. That's right.
Uh,
Well, I saw on, what is it on? It was somewhere on Facebook where somebody had posted, I don't want AI to write my book for me. I want AI to do my laundry and cook my
yes.
meals. I thought, yes.
Yes. Clean the house. Do the dusting. All those things I don't like to do and put off as
Yeah,
much as I can.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I finally
Now,
broke
talk to me
down.
about your newsletter. You said
Um,
you use MailerLite. How often do you put out a newsletter, and what do you offer in it? Because I've heard people say you need to offer something free every time, and I have
oh,
heard other people say don't do that, and I've
yeah.
heard other people say make sure they know who you are, share your life with them, and I'm going like, no.
Yeah. No, they don't need a nap in the middle of the day. Yeah, no. So, I I try to send out a newsletter twice a month, and and I try to. It's interesting, like when people first join my mailing list, yes, there is a welcome gift, a freebie, and there's a
Right.
series of emails that tell them a little bit about me, and which is good. But then, I sometimes join in promotions for newsletter builders or something like
Right.
that, where you share, a promotion site where a lot of authors are offering free stories if you sign up for their newsletter. And the interesting thing is that when I include one of those promotions in my newsletter, I'll notice there's, some unsubscribes that follow, after the
Right.
newsletter. And so I thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't. So then I sent out some newsletters with no promotions, no freebies at the
Mhm.
end. And again, people unsubscribed. So then I decided, okay, it's just that the newsletter's coming in and they've realized they've got too much in their inbox. And so they hit the unsubscribe button.
Right.
So I don't know whether you should do it or you shouldn't do it, but if I see something that I think people might be interested in, I pass it on. But I try to offer more like personal insights or recommendations for other authors. And I give them little bitty stories about what's happening in my small town. That's about it.
Something that's interesting instead of my boring life. I was typing today. I was typing yesterday. I was typing the day before. Tomorrow I shall type again.
Yeah. And sometimes just pictures or videos of what you see on your walk, but it's tough. I find newsletters really tough.
Oh, there's the timer. Oh. See, I told you I would not notice the time at all. Now, according to this, we have a few more minutes, which I always try to do. And I want you to tell me what's coming up for you that the listeners might be interested in.
Well, this pod, I'm trying. I am trying. I have the next book in one of my series is halfway finished, and it's amazing the number of things that have got in the way of finishing it. But so
like
I'm
Christmas
hopeful,
and Thanksgiving,
Christmas and conferences and all kinds of things like that. So I'm hoping that the next book will come out in January or February. And then I have the second book in the series with the local heiress dead, the one behind me there. That I'll bring out the second book in that series probably late summer.
Okay.
And And
so what is the book that's going to be out in early in 2025?
It's with the part-time private investigator, and the plot is that there are a series of what everybody thinks are accidental deaths in the small town, and eventually he pieces together that they're not accidents at all, and then manages to save the lives of a few people before the murderer strikes again. So,
and what is the title of this?
Right now, the working title is Karma. Karma is a Killer.
Karma is a Killer. You got to keep that. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think so. So that's the working title. And then the one in the summer is coming out in the summer is going to be about human trafficking. Yeah. So
I think the air date for this episode of the Right Focus will be sometime in April.
Oh, good.
So that should fit both the Karma is a Killer and the one that's set for the summer. So I hope everyone watches for you, Charlotte. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, it was great talking with you. Thanks so much
for inviting me. You are a delight.
Let
me just say, you are a delight.
Thanks for listening to The Right Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Remy Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at therightfocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mind your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.